Good morning. This is the second video for Meyer's fourth play from Tog, the high guard. Specifically, this is the counter to the play that we looked at last week. So, as a reminder, the first part of the fourth play is you have pulled up into your high guard and your opponent pauses, so you have the chance to attack first. You're going to cross your hand over, faking the thrust, turning it into a thwart cut. You're going to fake the lower cut, come back to that thwart, throw the back edge crossed hands, and leave with this undercut with the high hands. That's the end of the first part. The countering part starts with a counter against that low cut that we're leaving with. So as always, I will read to you the translation, give you my mental shorthand, and then we'll look at how I practice it on the pellet. So here's the translation for the counter, the second half. Here note, when in the backstepping you are delivered such a low cut towards your lower left opening, then step toward him with your left foot and fall on his sword with crossed hands, and the short edge thus stop his low cut, as can be seen in the figure on the right in the same scene. And furthermore, note as soon as he pulls his sword back up toward him, then jerk your sword thus with crossed hands well towards your left, and when he strikes back in, then take out his incoming cut strongly with your outside flat across from your left against his right, so that your sword flies back over your head in a single motion, and so that your hands cross back over one another in the air while your sword is thus flying around above. Then step well towards his right and keep your hands up, and let the short edge run off in a thwart by his right ear, yet such that it hits or grazes, and at once cut long after with a backstep. So what Meyer's telling us to do is, when the person doing the first part of the fourth play is trying to leave with that low cut, we're going to fall on it with crossed hands. When they start to leave, we're going to pull the sword from our left, and we're going to smack their incoming cut with our outside flat, allowing our sword to continue rotating so that we throw a back edge cut, and then we're going to leave cutting long. So my mental shorthand for this is that cross suppressing, slap it out, turning into that false edge, crossed hands, leave with the long cut. So that's it. So we're just responding to that final low cut that the opponent has thrown at us, and we're trying to regain the initiative. The way I practice this on my own is I try to think, well, how would I end up in that position? And from the first part of the fourth play, we know that they have thrown that crossed armed false edge cut at this ear, and then they're leaving with this low cut. So more than likely I've done a fairly high dramatic parry to make sure they don't beat the angle of a lower parry. So I'm going to be kind of up here, and then he says we're going to fall on this low cut with the crossed hands. So I'm going to shuffle out and dump. So I'll actually start this part from a high parry and a dump, and then he says to pull left, and we're just doing that to get the momentum so that we can flick. So I really just do a little pull with the hip turn and then bring it back. So I want to use my body to power this outside kind of slap, and then just keep the motion going. So from the high parry, fall with crossed hands, slap, with the false edge cut, leave with the high guard. So when I'm practicing this on my pel in isolation, I will face my pel in this high parrying position, step and fall, slap, hit with the back edge, and then leave with the long edge. That's how I practice that little piece. And I would recommend just doing that for a while, but I do like to put them together. So the way I put parts 1 and 2 of the fourth play together is I will start out of range, I will pull up into my high guard, cross my hands to feint the thrust, throw the back edge, fake the low cut, come back to the back edge, cross arm back edge, and then I will step back with that low cut with the step, and from there I'll just step forward back into this parry, cross suppression, and do the whole thing. So it is still a little bit broken up, but that kind of stepping out and then back in with the parry gives me a chance to practice the whole fourth play. I'm essentially playing role A and then B in it. So again, if I want to do just the second half, the response part individually, I will start in the parry. You don't have to, but I think that's the natural place you would end up, is you've just done this parry. Might even be kind of that oh shit parry where we're a little high. We're going to fall on this lower cut, slap it out, back edge, long edge, and leave. So I would practice that in isolation. Then if you want to practice the two parts together, again, high guard, fake the thrust, thwart, fake the low, back to the thwart, crossed armed, and then leaving with that lower cut with the high hands, and then step into that parry, fall, slap, back edge, leaving with a long cut. So that is how I practice the second half of the fourth play in isolation, and that's how I try to put them together so I can have kind of a nice long flow on the Pell. Just try to be mindful of all the little footwork pieces, go as slow as you need to. I would practice the second half in isolation until you feel comfortable with all the motions, and then see about putting them together. It should give you a good, fun sequence to practice on the Pell until we look at the next play next week.